La 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 la. Screen peeking. Bop bop bop.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 40 of Screen Peeking, a semi-weekly podcast where Ziggy and I get together to talk about video games and everything video game related. I am joined by my cousin Ziggy, and I am Nick.
Hello.
And we're just going to talk about the Switch OLED model and the Steam Deck that has been announced just yesterday. And that's probably about it. That's probably all we're going to talk about. It's really exciting. There's a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, I wanted to just let everybody know there's a big change happening for Screen Peeking. We're going to be changing the show. Instead of it being weekly, we are going to be moving it to being a monthly thing. Likely aiming to be recorded and posted at the end of every month. Right now, we will continue the weekly process until the end of this month, July 2021. So I think the last episode's on the 30th, and we'll probably post on the 31st. But yeah, then going off of that, we will just stay tuned to my Twitter at _Nicolobe, and I will post when we have recorded and when the episode will be coming up soon, when we know. Because yeah, as life gets crazy, I have a lot of exciting projects I really want to work on for this channel. Ziggy's going back to school to be more successful than me, and yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing this show, but on a much smaller scale. We'll probably be able to have a lot more fun with it anyway. So definitely a lot to talk about every single time we record, because there's always a lot of game
Yeah.
news.
Yeah,
So without further ado,
episode.
how are you doing, Zig? How have you been doing this week, or last 2 weeks? What have you been playing?
Last couple weeks have been a little rough, to be honest, but been filling in that gap with some video games. So I started replaying Outer Wilds, partly as comfort food and also partly because it is tying into the other podcast that I do, Vertical Slice. And also playing just a shit ton of Forza, 'cause that's also a good like comfort food game for me. I just like, it's so cozy. I pretty much once a day I just go in and then like scroll through the like thousands of cars that are in there, and then I'm like, this one looks kind of cool, and then I like buy it, put a cool skin on it, upgrade it, drive around, and be like, okay, I'm done. Then I close the game and go do something else. It's just for like a half hour. It's just fun as hell. And then as of this morning, I broke down and bought Skyward Sword HD. I'm a fucking sucker, and Nintendo looped me in paying more money for this Wii game than it costed at launch. It's fucking stupid. I hate it. I hate you, Nintendo. Why do you do this to me? And honestly, Skyward Sword HD, I kind of have mixed feelings about it so far. I've done the intro, like I got the goddess sword, I think is what it's called in that game, right?
Okay, so you're about like 20 hours in, then yeah.
It feels like it a little bit, but except you can skip cutscenes now. You can just press B and like automatically skip through text boxes. So when characters are talking, something like hold down A to make it go like slightly faster. You can just slam through dialogue, slam through cutscenes that you don't really give a shit about, because there's a lot of them, a lot of just like dumb tutorial shit, and it is great. Like on that side of things, if you've played it before, you come back in, you have the issue that you kind of talked about where like it's just kind of boring the second time through. I think it fixes that quite a bit, from what I've played so far. That said, if the controls is what you turn you off from the game, this will do nothing for you. You'll still hate it. The motion controls are just the same level of jank that they were on the Wii, which is kind of disappointing in the fact that like you always have to point at screen and then press a button to like realign it all the time, which I kind of feel like 2 generations later we should have figured that out by now, but I don't know, maybe the tech hasn't changed that much. And also the button controls, I played around with them a bit, even though I didn't really plan on playing with that the whole playthrough, because I like the motion controls, but they do not feel good. They feel really bad. Like trying to use the right stick to swing your sword just does not feel right at all. Which is disappointing. But yeah, what's up, Nick?
I've had a thought about this, because I had thought way back when I was younger and smarter than I am now about how they could use buttons for the same actions that you do with the motion controls. And the thing is, when I played Wind Waker, which is the first Zelda game I ever beat when I was younger, I was always amazed and thought it was so cool how when you target an enemy, you slice vertically. When you don't target an enemy, your slice is horizontal. And when you're targeting an enemy and you're walking forward and you attack, you'll do a stab. And I feel like all those things, you could somehow find a way to make that work, whether it's just standing still as a vertical slice and walking to the left or right makes it horizontal while targeting. I don't know, but I feel like something like that would make more sense than moving the right stick. Isn't it like moving it left and right to do like a horizontal slice or something weird like that?
So
or how does it work?
Part of the reason why it feels bad is so you move the stick to the right, and at first Link just moves his arm over, but if you press it fast enough, then he moves his arm over and then goes, oh yeah, and then he does a slice. So it's kind of like weird and disconnected. Like there's a weird amount of lag between when you do it and when he actually swings, which means it just does not feel good at all. But yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. My guess is with that might have taken like an extra level of coding on the back end for how the attacks in that game actually function on like a base engine level. And based off of this, I think that's totally what it is because it's all based on arm movement. So
yeah, it's following the pointer or whatever. Like it's getting pulled that way. It's not an animation.
I think essentially what the stick is doing is just pulling his arm in that direction. And if his arm gets pulled in that direction fast enough, same with motion controls, he does a swing. But it's just from what you're used to with button controls, where you do something, it instantly happens on screen. That it just doesn't do that, and it feels kind of disconnected and bad. So yeah, if controls are what turned you off on the original, don't buy it. It'll feel just as bad to you. But like the visual upgrades are actually fantastic. Like
really,
there's some blurry textures. There's a bit of blurry textures, and that's kind of the only thing that gives it away as a Wii game. But other than that, it looks honestly on par with most games on the Switch, like even modern Nintendo releases, just because that game has such a strong art style. And having a lot of the textures on characters look a bit more HD. So they look really sharp, they animate really beautifully, and this it's just such a strong style that it does actually look quite modern. So that's great. Runs 60 FPS, which is almost jarring, so I'm so used to that game at 30 FPS, but it looks and feels great on that end. But yeah, I mean, if you're in the boat that I am, where you really liked it when you first played it, and you want to play it again, I would say the upgrades that they have are actually pretty meaningful in that aspect, where, yeah, you can skip through a lot of the boring shit. The stuff that's there, is better than ever. I'm enjoying it. But yeah, I mean, I think I played it, like you made the joke, 20-hour intro, but I think I got through it in like 45 minutes, which is very impressive because that was significantly longer the first time I played it. Granted, I was a dumb kid, and I think I had trouble. Like, I remember specifically when you get out of the waterfall cave, you just like turn right and go down a path, and it's very obviously signposted. You can see the path, but it took me like an hour to figure out I was supposed to turn right because I was fucking blind apparently and didn't see it. Which, replaying it now, I remember that is just funny. There's a lot of nostalgia wrapped up in it for me, but yeah, my short like hour-long impression is pretty good so far. Pretty good remaster. Nice.
Yeah, like that's good. I appreciate all that information because I was a little bit like, I'm a big Zelda fan. I still want to play it, but I have the Wii version, and for me, that's not enough to play it for sure. But it's good to know that 100% now, and not like 90%. And you talking about playing Forza for a whole bunch recently. I've seen you on there, and the shocking part about that is that we are both online at the same time. That's the weird part.
Crazy,
right?
Crazy,
like I just couldn't believe it.
I mean, granted, I had a 4-day weekend, so I was playing it a lot on.
Oh, okay.
Like the hours that you're actually awake.
Yeah.
God, I am so excited for Forza Horizon 5. We haven't talked about it much on this show, but they keep releasing little snippets of information. Like, because I remember I said when they showed that trailer that it largely looked like Forza Horizon 4, but just like a new map, more cars, which I was fine with. But the more they show, the under the hood, like kind of nitty gritty shit, they're really improving. Like the sound design in this game, huge, like just insane improvements. Where the sound in Horizon 4, I would say, is probably one of the weaker parts, which in a game about cool cars is disappointing because you really want to hear like the power in all of them. And they're totally redoing a lot of the sounds for a lot of the cars to make them sound more unique and more meaty and good. But also things like if you have a different intake or a different muffler, your car actually sounds different, whereas before it all sounded the same, which is cool. Like those little sharp little details. And when
Right.
you're upgrading your car, you can just rev the engine in that menu with the right trigger just to see how it sounds while you're upgrading it. So you can put
Oh,
on,
that's
like
great.
a different tailpipe and be like, how's this sound? You're like, I'm not feeling that. Put in something else, rev, and you're like, oh yeah, that's it, and then move on. Which, yeah, great features. And I think they're also adding sort of like a 3D like spatial audio feature to it that some modern games are having, where sound actually like realistically, bounces off of things and gets to your virtual ears, which love to see it. And then, yeah, just I think customization seems to be the big thing they're focusing on. And that makes me so happy because that's my favorite part about Forza is customizing. But yeah, I am stupidly excited for that game.
That's cool. No, I'll definitely want to try it out. So maybe I'll actually get an opportunity to play it with you. When is it coming out? Do you remember? Is it September or November?
November, I want to say.
Okay.
Let me double check. Yeah. Anyways, what have you been playing?
Well, I went back and I platinumed Ghost of Tsushima, so that felt really good. So platinumed it. Pretty much that just means I don't have to do the New Game Plus stuff, which there was only 2 trophies for. One seemed so easy, I just didn't want to put the time into doing it, which is like purchase a single item from a new vendor, only available on New Game Plus. And then the second thing was like beat the game on New Game Plus. And I was like, I'm not going through the whole game again right now. I already beat it on the hardest difficulty. I'm like, it said it'll bump your difficulty up unless you're on the hardest. And I'm like, yeah, like I already have all my skills. Nothing's hard anymore. Like I've gotten good at the game, and I don't really have a desire to just skip cutscenes and go from A to B over and over again. So I was like, I'm not doing that. And it isn't needed for the platinum, apparently. So didn't do that. And then I didn't get to rank 20 on Legends, the multiplayer, but I did play it. So I got to try it out a bit, got to like rank 11 or something. And I had a blast with that. That was fun. Hopping off that though, uninstalled it and then went right into Yakuza because I was like, wanted to play this, that week when Taylor was gone. So jumped back into that. And it's definitely going to be a slow burn. I'm not as hot on it as I was when I first started playing it, and I don't know why, but I'm enjoying it when I do. So it's more like I'll sit down, I'll play it for like an hour and a half, and then okay, I'm done with that for today. I might play it in a couple days or something like that. But I'm definitely not done with it. I'm just going through real slow, but still enjoying it. Still enjoying it a lot. Jumped into Outriders just because it was on Game Pass, and I've been like, I want to play it. I want to get play a bit. But I don't have anyone to play it with. No one's available. No one hasn't played it that I know. So everyone's just kind of like, oh, I'm already level 30. I've already done my stuff. I'm already out. I'm done with it. And so I got to level like 23 and had a friend kind of boost my level when he jumped on one time to play with me. He helped me like play a couple of rounds of this like really hard mode. And so I got to play around with the skill trees, and I was playing Pyromancer. And that was a lot of fun until it wasn't. So then I stopped, and then lately I've just been kind of hopping between games on the Xbox. I didn't write everything down, and it's not really worth mentioning everything. But one I wanted to mention is I jumped back into Katana Zero because I don't have any achievements on the console version of that game. So I was realizing I need to go in and I need to complete it again. So that's the current objective as of this moment.
Sweet. Yeah, I just did that like. I forget if I mentioned that on the show or not, but yeah, just went through and replayed it on console and got those achievements.
Nice.
It's such a fun game. It's
such a good
fun
time.
one to replay because every time you go through it, you're more skilled and shit that was hard becomes easy, and it's really rewarding to go through again, or even just picking up on the little narrative hints that it sprinkles in throughout.
Yeah, there's definitely parts where I was like, okay, this wasn't that hard before, and why am I dying so much? I suck. I'm like, hey, think about it. Oh, okay, there we go. And you're fine. Yeah. Well, let's move on to I wanted to ask you just a quick update. Have you played Proteus at all this month so far? That was our game club game for this month. Okay, no worries. I haven't played it since that first bit, and I don't know if I will anymore because now I'm just having a blast playing other stuff. but I played a few hours. I'll leave that for a couple weeks from now to talk about. Well, let's move right into like the fact that over these last 2 weeks, Zig, we've had the Switch in parentheses OLED model get announced. Pre-orders have come and gone, and same thing with the Steam Deck. I almost said Stream Deck, and I'm going to say Stream Deck a lot, people. If I say Stream Deck, I'm talking about Steam Deck. And if you don't hear a difference in that, that's fine. Anyways, I'm talking about Valve's new handheld console PC hybrid, and basically that they released the information for yesterday morning. I'm just going to go talk about the Steam Deck first because I'm personally more excited about that, and I will switch this right over. A little bit of sharing the screen here.
I feel like we should start with the OLED model just so we can get it chronologically, and also because I think the Steam Deck is like. Well, it's an interesting response, I think, to the announcement of the
Okay,
OLED
I won't
Switch.
fight you on that. Let's talk about that then.
All right.
Here we go. This thing. Why don't you start with that?
So yeah, on a random, it was like a Tuesday morning, right? Just like Nintendo puts up this trailer for a new Switch, which, watch it. I'm like, oh, is this it? I saw in the title that it's just called the OLED model. I'm like, well, we'll see if this has anything else. Watch it. Nope, it's just a Switch with an OLED screen. It looks a little better. It has some smaller bezels. The dock has an Ethernet port, which honestly I might just buy the dock by itself because I think you can use it with the current Switch model, only because it looks really sexy. Those white Joy-Cons look good too.
The dock is the best looking part of this, in my opinion.
Oh, also the biggest upgrade of the whole thing is that it has like an actual functional kickstand now. I think that's a neat feature. But yeah, that came out, and the Nintendo community just had a pretty resounding like, huh. Which is about it.
I think there was a bunch of people that I'm trying to find that stand here. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's cool. It's adjustable and everything. Maybe they have more about it actually right below here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I mean, when that got shown, I was like sitting with my friend. We were on our break at work, and we were looking at it. And we just looked at Twitter, and we're like, holy shit, this just got announced. The new Switch. Pull up the trailer without reading anything, and you're just watching it. You're like, oh, OLED, sick. That's amazing. Oh, look at that stand. And then you start like realizing those Joy-Cons look similar. Okay. And then you start looking into the specs. You start learning about the information. Okay, cool. LAN port. That's neat. Internet, Wi-Fi, all that. Or I mean, the network will still suck, I think. But that's just an opinion. 64 gigs of internal storage. Don't really care about any of that information. Enhanced audio, sure. Like, I actually do think that the audio on the Switch isn't great at all, but I don't know if that's a reason I would buy a new one. The dock looked cool. Yeah, the dock looked cool. I love the stand because my stand on my current Switch is broken. And
yeah, that's
like Taylor,
I think pretty much anybody who's used their stand.
Taylor's like playing with it. She'll like open it back and forth, and the problem with that is it's where the SD card goes, right? Like you can't just leave that thing like where you can turn your console and it just flops open. That's what happens with mine right now, and it doesn't hold it up that well. So I think that's a great upgrade. But yeah, to buy this, basically, it's the internals are the same. You're putting it in a different shell, different screen. Or same shell, it's different screen, and you're using. They haven't said that they're new Joy-Cons, and I don't think they are. And so, what if you get that Joy-Con drift? What if you have this whole issue that's been going on? Like, can you just update your controllers or make them better? Or I don't care that they're the same shape. That's all fine. Like, I don't need anything super fancy. But as we talk about Valve's Steam Deck, there's some cool stuff that they're doing on that Nintendo definitely could have done with just the Joy-Con part.
So, interesting note on Joy-Cons. I'm not sure if you saw this, but in the last week, somebody in the community actually figured out what the engineering issue is with the Joy-Cons.
Yes, I saw that. Was that the paper thing?
Yeah. Yeah, with a literal like business card size paper. It's basically it's just an issue of they only use one screw to bolt down the thumbstick, which means that over time the connection that it has on the graphite in it starts to loosen up and it doesn't read it properly. But he was showing like in your drifting Joy-Con, if you press down near the thumbstick, it immediately fixes itself. And so he just like opened up his Joy-Con, put a piece of like kind of cardstock paper underneath the thumbstick module, and it was perfect. Like it worked amazing. And the fact that literally all it is, like they could just make thicker plastic underneath that and it would be solved like for good. is fucking ridiculous. Like, that's is that not the stupidest shit? Like,
it is the stupidest shit.
How has Nintendo A not figured that out themselves, and B, if they have, that seems like, I mean, maybe I'm stupid. I don't know anything about manufacturing, but I'm not crazy in thinking that that has to be a really, really simple manufacturing fix.
Yeah, like it would cost money, but would it cost more than repairing everybody's like Joy-Cons?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know, man.
So let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about the positives.
Yeah.
OLED screen, that's awesome. Great for battery. Great for how things will look. But at the same time, like, I mean, the game's like, it's still not more powerful. So the games are only going to look so good regardless.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this strikes me as similar to the Switch revision that they did, I think a couple years ago, right? Where they gave it like a more efficient processor so it had better battery life. This has a similar feel as that, where it is a new model of the Switch, but it feels more like a Switch like Slim model rather than a Switch Pro, where if you have a Switch, it doesn't really make sense to upgrade to this. But if you don't have a Switch, this is the perfect time to get in. You know, buy this new, better Switch that has these kind of slight upgrades. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing on this, where I see a lot of discourse online if you're like, why would I spend $350 on this? You know, like, I already have a Switch. But I kind of see this, I'm like, I mean, I don't really think it's for you. Like, I don't know if Nintendo is working on a, you know, Switch Pro. I imagine this is what the rumors were leading to. Like, all the solidified shit we saw of, like, Samsung is making these OLED screens for Nintendo. This is what that was pointing towards. Whether Nintendo is working on something with more power, we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think that this console is for existing Switch owners. I think it 100% is for those who don't have a Switch and are encouraging them to come in now.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's totally true. I mean, it's not for me, and that's okay. It's absolutely fine. I am just I am bummed because I do want to upgrade my Switch. Like, I have the one that came out day one with, you know, Zelda. So if they are waiting to do, I'm, you know, cross my fingers that they have a Pro version that comes out with Zelda, right? If not, if Zelda plays like it does right now on the Switch, fine, not a bad thing. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
I would prefer it ran better. I'd prefer it looked nicer, but I also, if the game is fun and I'm gonna spend hundreds of hours playing it, like, I don't care. That's fine. I think that's about all I have to say on it. It's just kind of surprised. I guess actually one more thing I have to say on there is I have a feeling it could be that if they are going to say do a new, you know, they will do a new console at some point, whether it is just a upgrade, you know, a Pro version or a fully new Switch. I think this is a great way to still sell through all your stock of your base version, where all the internals are still the same, but you have a new screen on there, and you can still use that new screen on your new version. And so you can, like, I think that's kind of an interesting manufacturer side of things that, like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think I do, and that would be really smart. And you know what I mean? Like, that would be really a neat way to, like, sell through your old stuff while still, like, acquiring a ton of new hardware at the same time.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, luckily, it seems like we did kind of get a proper Switch Pro of some kind from an unexpected competitor.
Yes, we got the Steam Deck. Oh, it has a space in between Steam and Deck. Huh, I've been typing this wrong the whole day. Anyways, yeah, that would make more sense, actually. But anyways, yeah, the Steam Deck was announced yesterday morning. And this thing is basically your little handheld PC. It runs on Steam OS, and you'll be able to play pretty much, I imagine, almost any Steam game that you have. I mean, it is a PC, so you're gonna have to, like, lower settings and play around with what games will and will not run on it. There'll be minimum specs on every game and all that stuff, so, like, don't expect everything to work, but I would definitely say, like, most of your library is going to be working. And I'm excited for this. I'm excited for the next version of this, especially. I'm not buying it this year. First thing I thought when I saw it was, that looks really cool. I really want one. I'm not going to get one, though. And I really want to see what the next version looks like. Second thing I thought of was, one thing I do love about the Joy-Cons is that you can buy replacements if the buttons or control sticks bugger out. And if I'm paying I don't know what it is for you. Actually, let me see if I can find out. Actually, how much is the
It's about
most
400
expensive
for me.
version for you? What about the most expensive one?
A little over 600. Like six.
Yeah, 649 I think is what is what yours is, and then I have my thing here, 819 is mine. So if I say wanted the best one, and I paid $820 for it, and then for some reason, you know, for some reason it's just like a button breaks or the control stick's broken, like what's the process there? Is there warranty on that? And also just, or am I just out? Is my whole PC basically just over? Sure, I can use that little trackpad, but which we can talk about in a sec. But anyways, that was my second thought, was just, man, like I like the fact that with the Switch, if my buttons or something breaks there, I could at least not have to replace my whole console.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably just repair it though. Like, I think because it is essentially just a small laptop with, which also the specs on this, I should mention, are really impressive. I've been watching like a lot of videos on this. I've definitely been doing my research on it. But
awesome.
Because it has a 720p screen, which, for that size of handheld makes a lot of sense. Any more than that
totally
would be
fine.
Wasting pixels. So because it's targeting 720 on games, it is actually really impressive what it can do, where you can run shit like Control on high settings, like, proper modern AAA games on fairly high settings, and it'll run, very smooth because it's targeting 720 on this console. And that, I think, is really impressive for what it is.
All we care about is how many flops it has.
Like, how much battery life you'll get out of a game that intensive. I think they said like 2 hours of AAA gaming. But that said, if I'm playing, like fucking any indie game, some 2D game, I think they're saying run like the 8 hour side of things. It just depends on what you're playing.
Someone will make a peripheral that's like an extra battery pad that just clicks right across the top or something like that, that you're just like adds another 3 hours.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that this is Valve has had a interesting history when it comes to hardware, where they've tried a lot. Like, there's the whole Steam Machine thing. Those flopped pretty hard. There's the Steam controller. I own one of those. It's bad. And I feel like the Index was kind of their first real hardware success. Which is great because that also was the last piece of hardware they've done, and a lot of the stuff that's in this seems like a direct evolution of what was in the Index. And I think what makes me feel more confident about this than with something like Steam Machines or the Steam Link or whatever is that this feels like everything that they've learned from their past probably close to a decade of attempts at making hardware, all putting in something that should hopefully actually be pretty good, where even just comparing the controls in this to the Steam controller, my biggest issue with the Steam controller is that it just didn't have a second thumbstick. It forced you to use the trackpad, and that trackpad worked kind of cool for some games, and it was fun to mess around with if, you're in menus and you want to select stuff. I thought that was great, but a lot of times I just wanted a second stick. And this has a second stick. It gives you the options of all that, plus the trackpad. The ergonomics look kind of funky, but I've heard from hands-on impressions that they don't actually feel too bad, which is good to hear. But yeah, I think this is one of those. I'm definitely not going to pre-order it. I don't usually pre-order hardware anyway. But I think this has a really good shot at being a really, really solid piece of hardware.
Yeah, I agree. I really want to see. Well, everything's freezing on my computer. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, it was getting weird for me too.
Yeah, I was like, "What's going on here?" So sorry for those who are watching. There might have been a bit of a freeze for a moment. Don't know what happened there. But yeah, like for me, I I think it's cool that they also have a dock, even if it isn't launching right at the same time. That they will have a dock. And looking at it. It's kind of cool that there's they have an output for DisplayPort 1.4. I like that they're supporting not just HDMI but DisplayPort as well. You got your power in for the USB-C, and you got a USB 3.1 port and 2 USB 2.0 ports along with the Ethernet. So I mean those are all like really handy little things to have in your dock, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about whether or not I wanted to pick this up because I think if I did, I would get the is it I think it's a 256 gigabyte model where it has
Hmm.
NVMe and stuff like that. And that was a little over 500. So it's basically the same price as a PS5. And I was trying to think of like, okay, this fall, if I have the funds to
Yeah.
get another console, would I rather get this or a PS5? And I honestly think if this is what it's promising and it does work great, um, I kind of feel like I'd prefer this just because it's giving me, a different way to play my games. Where there are a
Hmm.
lot of games that I have on PC that I mentioned this before, I just hate playing at my desk, but I really want to finish. Like Persona 4 Golden, I can only play on my PC, but that is the opposite type of game that I like to play on my computer. But if I had that on the go, like fuck, that'd be amazing. It's what people have been talking about forever, Persona on the go, and that's how it was originally done. The Vita for Golden, Death Stranding. I would love to play that shit on the go. That is such a perfect, jump in, do a delivery, jump out type game. Um, those types of things, and even the trackpad, I could see some shooters being pretty good. I don't know how that'll feel. It was kind of mixed with the Steam controller the way
I'm
I felt
so
about playing
curious.
shooters with it.
Yeah.
But I feel part of my issue with it before is it just felt so loose with the Steam controller. I don't know how else to describe it. It was really imprecise. It was just like playing a game with a shitty mouse. Um, and so if they make that better, they can kind of tighten it up and feel a little bit better. I think that actually would be a great option for playing something like Doom on the go. Um, but yeah, I think this is a very, very promising device. I think that's the word I'll use.
Yeah, so I just wanted to go over a few of the features on it because, like I said earlier, the Switch, like even if they're not updating the core hardware of the machine, they could definitely do some stuff with the Joy Cons. And I mean, I don't expect them to do all these things. I'm realistic here, folks, but I do want to say, like, I think this stuff's really, really cool, right? And it'd be really neat to see Nintendo take something from this, even if it is just
Mhm.
these grip buttons. They have two extra grip buttons at the back on the left and the right.
Mhm.
And so you're basically getting four customizable buttons to do whatever the heck you want. And me using my Xbox Elite controller, like, I love using that, especially if one of my buttons breaks. It is really
Yeah.
handy to be able to map that A button to it or whatever it is. Like for me, it's the I think left bumper on my Xbox controller, and I have it mapped to what the one of the left underneath buttons. And now I'm just used to
Mhm.
that, and I think that is really really nice to have that as an option. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and also something I forgot to mention before is that this is literally just a PC,
Hmm.
and with all the benefits that come with a PC, where it just runs a modified version of Linux, but anything that you can run on Linux, you can run on this, which means you can run shit off the Epic Games Store. You can run, you can do your taxes on this probably. Like
In
it is a
bed.
PC. Yeah, exactly. You can do it on the go. It is a PC ass PC, just with a really, really streamlined front end that comes with Steam OS, which I think is the important factor because it feels like a console, but it has the open endedness of a PC. Meaning, also, they were saying you can totally wipe it and just reinstall Windows on it instead,
Hmm.
and have this portable little Windows machine with you, which probably would not be quite as like user friendly and fun to just pick up and play. But hey, you could do anything that Windows can. Um, and they're doing some really smart stuff with Proton too for Windows emulation. So even games that don't fully natively support Linux will run just fine through Proton, which is very smart. And I think they're even working with some anti cheat companies to make anti-cheat run well with emulation and all that. It's really cool. But I think, and that's something I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, and I really hope that this is successful because I hope hardware manufacturers in general, but especially in games, can start to pick up on the fact that people actually do care a lot about open source hardware. That is something that is attractive to a pretty large group of the people who buy these devices, and most devices these days just aren't that. The I
Hmm.
think Microsoft has been okay with that with the Xbox. You can like sideload shit pretty easy on it, hence why it's kind of a fun emulation machine. But Switch is obviously terrible for that. But I hope that this kind of sends a message to other developers that like, hey, this is something that people care about. Maybe you should consider allowing people to mod your hardware more or mod games better, things like that. I think in general, people will find a way to pirate games on your system no matter what you do. So you might as well just kind of like let people do cool shit with it too. Because that's why people don't like openness. It leads to piracy, apparently. Same way I feel about prohibition with a lot of things. The more you try to stop people, the more they'll just find other ways to do it. So you might as well just let everybody win and let us into your system. But I hope that's the message that this sends if it becomes popular.
Well, potentially, as more things become subscription based, it would make more sense to make it more open source for hardware anyway. So
that's true.
They don't have to worry about piracy as much. And you talking about like the Windows thing, like, yeah, it'd be kind of neat if you just had Windows and just had your Xbox app and you're able to just install your Xbox games on there and play it too. That'd be kind of neat. The other thing I wanted to just mention though that I thought was neat was with the best-in-class thumbsticks with capacitive touch sensors built in provide a level of precision and comfort not found in other portable gaming devices. So the control sticks having just like touch sensors on there, and they show even on down here, like they show the gyro where like the gyro for aiming, like moving your console around for aiming, happens when you could happen when you're putting both your thumbs on a control stick or on the trackpad, and it could stop when you let go, and so that you're not just like looking all over the place when you're maybe going to press a button on the side. I think that's cool. Touchscreen, trackpad, gyro, triggers, all the cool stuff that I really like in all this. The trackpad, like I like that it's there. I actually do. I like that it's an option. I definitely wouldn't use it while playing games, I don't think, but you never know.
The trackpad is, as someone who's used a Steam controller, even with a shitty garbage trackpad on there, it is surprisingly great. If not just for menus. Scrolling through menus with the D-pad sucks. I've always thought that, but being able to just use it like a mouse. You're going through menu in a game. Like say you're playing Destiny. You want to swap out your gear. Scrolling through your gear is kind of slow and boring. But when you have the little trackpad, just
use like a scroll wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine it feels like my. I imagine it feels like my my Vive controller trackpad.
Yeah, probably pretty.
That's probably
similar,
what it feels like.
The capacitive sensor thing. I saw them like. I'm surprised that hasn't been on other controllers that have released, because it is a really smart feature. Where that's been a thing in VR controllers for a while, because it's a good way to sort of mimic having finger tracking without actually having finger tracking. But it makes a lot of sense, something like this. Yeah, like what you're saying, where you can hold it down and then the gyro controls start, or just, knowing when you're about to do something, I think adds for some interesting stuff. I don't really know what I'm saying. But yeah, I think there's so many things that really stick out to me with this device, and I really hope that Valve could actually nail it. But because of their history, I'm not 100% confident, but I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait and find out. But yeah, very cool piece of tech. And with that, let's move right into our favorite 50 games of all time. We got a bit of time to talk about it finally, Zig. We can talk about our 29 and 28. So as before, when we did two, maybe I'll start with my 29, you go to your 29, and then I'll go to 28, you go to 20. So I have pulled mine up here, and my number 29 is a fantastic game. Don't know what they're doing with the next one, if there is one, but Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is my number 29.
Ooh, good shit.
I will say, I'm going to talk about it more because we have the time, but if I didn't have time, all I would say is I watch tournaments almost daily of this game, and I never play it, but I loved it when it came out, and I played it all the time. And I just studied the heck out of that game. Like, I love moves, frame data, watching what the pros like do, what they can figure out. I love just seeing the joy people get out of like new characters being announced. I love seeing the trailers. I love that every little stage and piece of music in that game has so much attention and love put into it. And like that game is just like the perfect museum of like so many franchises and so many characters, and it's just like a fun game you can pretty much pick up with anybody whether they've played games or not, and you can just be like, here, choose a character that you think is fun, or one that you've seen before on TV or on a game or on a screen somewhere, and let's just like beat each other up. So I just love the heck out of that game.
Yeah, it's such something. I think because I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think something I forgot to mention about it, and you kind of brought that up, is the scale of skill it takes to play this game is kind of unmatched in any other game I've played. Where like you said, you don't even have to know how to play games, but you can jump in, and because the controls are so simple, you can kind of button mash your way through it, and you can have fun, especially if you turn items on. Like someone who's never played the game before can beat someone who has, just because there's that added like randomness and shit
legendary
to it, which
Pokemon.
is not fun on a competitive standpoint, but on a party game standpoint, it's awesome. It adds just such an extra element to it. Or it has this super vibrant competitive community, like you're talking about, with frame data and all these things that I haven't personally studied, but I know a lot of people are really into it. Just the way it goes from, complete non-gamers all the way up to, literal professional gamers is just really wild.
Yeah, I think it also goes to show, like, this is a game that, like, there's tournaments for, right? People are playing for money, and you still see a wide variety of characters being used. And I think that's really cool when there are, like, must be like 80 or more characters now. To have to balance that and to have to make that they all have different moves. You can't just go, oh, Mario's fireball is way more overpowered compared to Luigi's. Like, it's not like a complete one-to-one comparison. Luigi's floats in a straight line, Mario's bounces, that kind of thing, right? Where like everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses depending on the situation, and depending on whether you are better at your neutral game versus getting back to a stage and edge guarding and all these other things to the game. I think it's really, really cool how they can balance it. Obviously, there's characters that are better than others. I'm not saying that they're all equal, but it is really cool to see in tournaments and more on the top end play that there are people still going, hey, no, look, don't forget about this character. This one's amazing, and I'll show you why. And then they pulled out some cool combos or some new moves that people haven't seen strung together, and I just love that. I love it so much.
Yeah. I think even compared to other Smash games, like this one specifically, you can win with pretty much any character in the game. Like there aren't really there's maybe a couple like just straight up trash picks, but in previous games there's 3 or 4 characters that you play to win tournaments or just to win games in general. But I feel like in this one, all the time I'll see people pick up just random character I never really think about and then do really great with it, and it's cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but what's your number 29?
My number 29 is going to blow people's minds because they're going to say, Ziggy, I had no clue this was going to be on the list.
It's a Mario game.
The original Doom.
Ooh.
Which
that high,
is...
hey? Wow. Nice.
29, honestly, might be kind of surprisingly low, but I think it's just because Doom is, in terms of importance, I mean, it's a good game. It's fun to play today, but I do think that there's a lot of games that do what it does better.
Man, you need to pick up and play
like
Proteus.
30 years old.
I
do. I really, really do.
I want to hear your opinion.
And even just like Doom 2 does it better. Doom 2016 does it better. But I think the reason why the original Doom just has to be on this list for me is because Tim Rogers said it best, which is, if you've played a video game, you've played Doom. Because the DNA of Doom is in
Smash Bros.
Literally everything. Literally every single game you have played traces back to Doom in some way. Whether or not it's a first-person shooter, whatever genre, it's just this game invented and refined so many game design techniques and bits of just, language of, signposting and enemy placement and combat and all these things. It is crazy. In addition to it just being a kick-ass game that's really fun, with a super vibrant modding scene that's still, around today. Brutal Doom is fucking amazing. It's such a great reinvention of it. It is such a game, such a platform. It's hard to talk about because so much has been said on it,
That's fine.
And I think it's just, I don't often say this when I'm talking about, my favorite games of all time, because I personally value the quality of the game more than the importance of the game. But I think Doom is just on such another level, especially for my specific tastes in terms of just how important it is. I would call Doom the most important game ever made. Excluding obviously like fucking Tennis for Two as like the first video game, all these things like that. I think just because Doom invented so much, like even things, everything traces back to Doom. It's yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but it's a game that if you care about the history of games at all or game design, you kind of have to play, just because it's like learning Latin if you're wanting to learn another language. Once you know Latin, so many languages are based off of it. Doom is like that. It's the core of everything in video games. It's amazing. That's
Nice.
about all I have to say.
I enjoy Doom. Definitely not that much, but that's awesome. I'm glad that you have it. So the way you're talking about it, I see what you mean when you said, well, it might be surprising at how low it is. Like, yeah, that sounds like it should be higher, but I'm interested to see what the other games are as we go through them.
To be honest, the other games are just like, there's a lot of games that are on this list that are what I said. They do what Doom does, but they just kind of are more fun.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I would say virtually every other game on my list is probably more fun than Doom from a modern perspective. But yeah, it's just sheer importance that puts it up there for me.
Great. Well, my number 28 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, wow.
Which is going to be a huge surprise because, yeah, like I actually enjoyed this game and want to. The only reason I don't go back to it is because it hasn't been enough times, and I know the story, and I kind of know the game. It doesn't have a lot, in my opinion, for replayability or replayable value. But I do want to replay it at some point. The reason I put this on my list and the reason I put it up so high is I'm the kid who was super into Star Wars growing up and then completely fell off of it and just got so uninterested in it since basically the most recent trilogy. And and it just kind of like made me disappointed, not excited to be a Star Wars like fan anymore. And I've never been like super into it. Like when someone could make a reference and I'm sure half of them or more it would go right over my head. But I like the world. I like a lot of the characters, and I just like, I guess, yeah, mostly I like the world and I like the lore behind everything, right? How are droids made and what's going on with those, what's going on with lightsabers, what's the Force and all that stuff, right? I think that stuff's fun. And I like, whether it's about Jedi or not, I like learning about that world. So when Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order started coming out or being talked about, I got really excited because I was kind of on a bit of a downer from the movies and being like, okay, well, I'm not really like interested in the movies whatsoever. I think at the time, I think it was before the last one came out, like the last of the new trilogy. If I don't remember if that's true, but I know I was definitely like just down, being like, I'm not looking forward to any new movie, even if there was one coming out soon. And then, yeah, when this came out, I just remember being like, I really want to play a new Star Wars game that doesn't tie in with any of the other movies directly, and that I can just play as a new character, as this guy who's like, he was one of the kids that were going to get like wiped out basically when some orders something or other gets put out. Yeah. Anyways, you're playing, I don't know the story anymore, but I loved the story when I was playing through it, and you're playing as this kid who survives an attack, and that you are, a Jedi, and you get to have these flashbacks of when he's younger and being trained, and you're playing through this game that plays very much like Dark Souls, which is my favorite franchise of all time. And so I do really, but none of those games are my number one, so don't get too excited there. I love Dark Souls, and this game definitely took what I love from Dark Souls but made it more accessible to people and added difficulties, which I thought was interesting. And I played through and I completed the game 100% on the hardest difficulty, which I was, again, doesn't matter if you don't. I'm putting that out there as like, this was something that was important to me and something I really wanted to do, because it made it feel more like Dark Souls for me. I'm putting it on that difficulty. And yeah, like had a great time going through. I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed it enough to finish it 100%, and I think that says a lot for Nick. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to when they make another one. Ideally, they do, and I'm sure they will.
Oh yeah. No, I totally agree with your take on Star Wars. I like the original trilogy well enough. I definitely liked it more as a kid. But yeah, I always thought that the world of Star Wars was like significantly better than any of the movies, really.
Mhm.
And so yeah, every once in a while, something like Jedi Fallen Order comes out, which just really understands why Star Wars is appealing better than most of the movies. Better than most of the actual official material. And just knocks out of the park. I didn't finish Jedi Fallen Order, but what I did play of it totally was that, where more than just being throwing Star Wars iconography at you and being like, look, it's nostalgia, like it.
Yeah.
It actually,
A spaceship.
on a base level. Yeah, it's a Millennium Falcon, dude. Whoa! Like, it wasn't good because of that. It was good because it was an excellent story told in a really, really interesting world, and it took the bits that were actually legitimately interesting about Star Wars, not just iconic, and built stuff off that. Built some interesting lore. These new characters, all new characters. I think that's really important and kind of rare for Star Wars. And yeah, just did something. It's a really great piece of Star Wars media, which is weirdly rare for a universe and IP that has so much potential.
Yeah, do you mind if I spoil anything? And if so, spoiler warning, everybody.
I probably won't finish it, so yeah.
Because some people might care about these things, is do you get to where you got to make your lightsaber? Where you got to where it basically becomes a dual-sided one?
Ooh, I did not. That sounds
so
cool.
You get to like find your own crystal, you choose the color and everything, and you like go and like find your crystal, you get to build your lightsaber, and then yeah, you have the dual sides, but then it also splits. And then you're able to basically go between either the double-ended, just a single, or you can split them and have dual wield basically. And just like those three combat styles was just so fun to switch between and like play around with that later on. I thought that was a big moment for me, where you're just like with the music, the classic Star Wars music, you're like, oh, like putting this thing together, and you're like, and it's like glowing in front of his face. You're like, yeah, I did it. I made a lightsaber. This is pretty cool. That moment was really special to me. And then another one was right at the end, final boss fight. You beat the chick you're trying to kill. The red lightsaber. What's her name? I don't remember. When did this game come out? It must have been like almost 2 years ago now. So it's been a while since
2019, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't played it since. So it's been a while. But you defeat her, and then all of a sudden Darth Vader shows up, and that was so cool because you don't see him at all in the whole game, and you're just like I don't remember seeing him in the whole game, but like I remember just not expecting it whatsoever. You're in this underwater like station, and he comes out and he comes at Cal, and you're basically like running up to kill him, and he just gets like choked and then thrown to the ground, and then you play a sequence where you're running and things are getting crushed by the Force and thrown around, and Darth Vader's like chasing after you, and you're like, get me the fuck out of here. I'm in this underwater station. How am I getting out of this thing? And that was like, it's just so cool to me. Like, obviously all scripted, but it was just so special. You're just like, oh damn. And you just have the music, you hear his breathing before you even see him too. And you're like, oh no, like shit's about to get real. So that was really, really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I think Darth Vader has a similar problem that like Sephiroth has, that kind of makes the Final Fantasy VII Remake lose some of its luster, where he's so iconic that he kind of stops being scary, which is unfortunate because, when you first see him in A New Hope, having him bust through the door and just killing dudes, it's like he's terrifying. He's this horrifying menace. But because, we've seen him so many times, Luke, I'm your father. Everyone knows that shit. It's old news. So I think when a piece of media does actually make Darth Vader legitimately scary, which doesn't happen very often, it's always really fucking impressive to me. So it's cool it does that.
Yeah, I really feel like they did pull it off for the end of this game. And especially, I think it was that fact that like pretty much every character is new, right? You don't have a lot of those ones that you recognize, or you don't think about Darth Vader at all. You're like, hey, this is the person I'm going after. I'm going after this girl in black with a red lightsaber. It's girl Darth Vader. Like in my head, like just for to simplify it, it's like, okay, I'm going after girl Darth Vader. Okay, I beat her. Cool. I'm done. I beat this person. It's probably the end of the game. And then you hear the kind of voice or the breathing, and you're like, oh shit. What's gonna happen now? And then you run up to slice him, and he just like stops you, and you just start the whole thing, and you're just like, oh, this is awesome, and you're just like coming after you.
That's so cool.
Not sure if your character's going to die at the end of the game, because it still could happen, and like have an emotional end, or if you're gonna live. And I'll just leave that part not spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
All right, my number 28. One of my favorite kind of game where I know jack shit about it. A lot of people are like, "Holy shit, dude! This game just came out. You like have to play it." And so, weird little indie game called Celeste. You know, not really a platformer guy. Download it on, I think my computer is when I played it first, and just floored. First time I played it, like it was fucking difficult. I think I had to use assists to get through it my first time. Again, I'm not really a platformer guy, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard of Celeste by now. I don't really need to explain what it is. It's kind of lost its status as like, you know, the unknown indie gem at this point. It is a very known quantity. But I mean, when that game first came out, 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I mean, I had never heard of the game before it released, and then suddenly I saw just a ton of videos about it on my YouTube feed of people like, holy shit, this game just came out. It is incredible. It's one of the best games I've ever played. It's, you know, like this fantastic platformer with a really touching story. And, you know, I finally downloaded it, played it. And yeah, I mean, it was just such a tight, polished experience from a gameplay perspective, start to end. And I think intertwines its story with its gameplay in such a beautiful, flawless way that not many games really pull off, where, you know, it's hard as fuck, but it uses its difficulty as a really essential storytelling device for what it is. You know, you're literally climbing this mountain of, you know, mental illness and depression, and played it, I think, at a perfect time in my life where I was going through a lot of that shit, and playing it and having this sort of, you know, you can climb this mountain, you can climb the mountain in real life too, is kind of what I got out of it. And like God, that game like really, really touched me in a way that not many games have.
That's always great when that happens.
Yeah. I think a lot of it was just so unexpected. I think that's still why I hold it in such regard, is because it's great when games do that. Zero expectations going in, you come out and it just touched you in such a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Celeste fucking rocks. I don't have a ton to say on it other than if you haven't played Celeste for some reason, it is like that game becomes free a lot. I believe it's on Game Pass. So
it's also worth the money. Just go buy it.
or just buy it. Support indie devs. But like, I mean, if you're on the fence, it's always cheap and or free. So just play it. What are you doing? Come on, play
I think
it.
it's on Game Pass too.
Yeah. But yeah, fucking amazing game. I don't have much else to say.
Where it was. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I started that game. It's one of those ones that I didn't drop it for any reason in particular. I think I just got distracted. And now you've reminded me that I've only played the first couple levels, so I think I need to go back and play it. Because I did enjoy it. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. But I think I only did one or levels.
Yeah. It is such a special experience. Also, one of the things I think is really funny about it is that the whole story of the game is like kind of about being trans, but it's accidental because the Maddie Thorson, the person who developed this game, didn't really identify as trans when the game came out. They still saw themselves, or they were still uncertain with all that stuff, which I think is really interesting because it comes from a place of like genuine uncertainty on that side of things from the developer, and then only later did they end up coming out as a trans woman. And I think that's just a really interesting wrinkle to the story and kind of makes it a little bit more meaningful, I think, of just how genuine of an emotional place it comes out of. There's a lot there. Also, it's the game that put Lena Raine on the map as a composer, which fucking good. She is probably one of the better composers working in the games industry today. Like, her work is phenomenal, and I've been seeing her in so many games now. She's in fucking Minecraft. That's kind of, you know, one of the biggest things you can do in terms of games. So yeah, awesome that it put her there and put that team on the map, and I'm so happy that they got the success that they deserve.
Awesome. I gotta go back and play it. Let's move on. Let's end the show. That has been our favorite 50 games of all time, or at least two of them, numbers 29 and 28. And I just want to say, like, this has been like crazy. I realized we passed 40 episodes last week or 2 weeks ago, Zig, and like that. I always like to just like acknowledge, like, that's amazing. That's great that we did that. I don't mind being a little bit cocky there, or whatever you want to say, being prideful in like our work. I like that we've been able to stick with this for, it's almost been a year now. It will be at the end of August, and yeah, sure, things are changing, but I like doing this with you, and I'm glad that you're here with me. So with that mushy stuff,
same here,
out of the way, Zig, do you want to plug your other podcast at all, or anything else?
Yeah, episode 3 of Vertical Slice got released. It is about Resident Evil 8. So if you want to hear my more sort of deep dive game design-y opinions on it, you should listen to that. Max has some cool takes on it too, as someone who has never played a Resident Evil game. He had some interesting issues with it in terms of just understanding like actually how to play it and like understanding the design language of the game, and I thought that was actually a really interesting take, so you should listen to it if not just for that. But yeah, that's about it.
Nice. Yeah, and I just have one thing I want to say to everybody. I will be playing through all the Souls games, leading other than the Demon Souls remake, because I just don't have a desire to replay that right now. I liked it a lot, but I played it too recently. So Dark Souls 1 is where I'll start, then Dark Souls 2, then Dark Souls 3. I'm going to play Bloodborne last, though, on the small chance that it does get an update where it can play 60 FPS, or there's a remaster or a remake or whatever the heck. But basically, yeah, just trying to play through all these games and their DLCs as we lead up to Elden Ring coming out at the end of January. And yeah, if it gets delayed, then whatever. I'll play Elden Ring whenever it comes out. But providing that it does come out on time, I will be playing through all these, and I'll be doing it on Twitch, on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Nicklobe. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to do this. I'm probably going to start... let's see, my birthday's on the 8th of August, probably right after that. Probably the 9th, yeah. We'll say Monday, August 9th. I'll be streaming at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll be doing that for about 2 hours every weekday, I'd say, leading all the way through however many months it takes to get through all these games. And I'm very, very excited, especially for Dark Souls 2, Zig. That one is the one that I've played the least, and the one I haven't played in the longest amount of time. So I'm really excited to go back and play that one, because like that'll be almost like playing a new game for me again. But yeah, please check that out. And for those who don't want to watch a long stream, I will be doing my best to put highlights or anything exciting together and just putting it on YouTube. So ideally, that'll be about 10 to 20 minute videos that are just way more condensed of what happened. So if you miss a day and you want to just see what happened, you can check that out too. But yeah, with all that being said, until next time, keep peeking that screen. Bye, everyone.
Keep peeking that screen.